I'm June. Standing outside the retreat center, the cold mountain air stung my face, but it was nothing compared to the humiliation I felt a moment ago. The heavy door behind me muffled the sound of laughter, but it still echoed in my ears. I could still see the smirk on her face, hear her cruel words. My dog is literally smarter than you. The words were like a slap in the face, and I couldn't shake them off. Let me go back a bit and tell you how I got here. 11 years ago, I was a single mother, struggling to make ends meet. My daughter was just a child, and I needed a stable job to support us. That's when I found out about Meadowbrook Home Creations. They were a luxury home decor company, known for their high-end furniture, handcrafted textiles, and unique decorative pieces. People were willing to pay big money for their products. I was lucky to land the job of managing supplier relationships. On my first day, an elderly woman named Grace took me aside. Grace was 65 and had been working there for nearly 25 years. She was on the verge of retirement, and I was going to take over her position. "Listen, dear," she said in a low voice. "The owners here are penny pinchers. They don't want to spend money on proper record keeping or legal contracts. They just want things done quickly and quietly. So, here's the trick. Keep everything up here." She tapped her head. "Don't write it down. Make those supplier relationships personal. That way, they need you, and you'll have job security." I was desperate for the job, so I followed her advice. Grace spent 3 weeks with me, introducing me to the suppliers. There was Liam, who owned a metalworking shop on the outskirts of the city. He had twin daughters, and his wife was a well-known local artist. Then there was the Thompson family, who ran a large woodworking facility in the neighboring town. Their great-grandfather had started the business decades ago. There was also Maya, who managed a group of artisans that specialized in hand-dyed silk. And Tom, a procurement expert who could source rare materials at the last minute. Grace told me, remember their birthdays, their kids' achievements, and their struggles. Treat them as friends, not just business partners. They'll never forget that. And I did just that. For over a decade, I built strong, personal relationships with these suppliers. When Liam's twin daughters graduated from college, I sent them personalized gifts. When the Thompson family needed an advance payment for new machinery, I worked with the owners to make it happen. After Maya's workshop was damaged by a flood, I called her every other day to check on the recovery. I knew which supplier was best for a rush order, which one produced the highest quality work, and which one needed a gentle touch. And I never put any of this information in the company's official systems. No spreadsheets, no contact lists. As long as the products arrived on time, the owners, Mr. and Mrs. Hill, were happy. They'd simply say, "Handle it, June," and I did. Over the years, Meadowbrook Home Creations grew. They hired young, fresh-faced graduates from top-tier business schools. These new employees would come in with their fancy degrees and jargon, but I stayed in my small office, making phone calls and sending emails, keeping the supply chain running smoothly. I was just the background person, the one who made sure everything worked like a well-oiled machine, and nobody really noticed me. Then, 2 years ago, the Hill's daughter, Ava, graduated from college. She was 24, full of energy and confidence. The Hills immediately gave her a high-profile position in marketing. Ava started attending meetings, making suggestions, and changing things around. She was loud and assertive, the kind of person who walked into a room and demanded attention. She never really talked to me. I don't think she even knew what I did all day. To her, I was just another employee. 3 months ago, Mr. Hill called a big meeting. He announced the launch of the Timeless Collection, a high-end line of furniture and decor that they had been planning for over a year. They had already received advance orders worth millions of dollars. The launch was set for 8 weeks later, and it required the cooperation of 17 different suppliers. Some of them were long-time partners of mine, while others were new relationships I had painstakingly built over the past few months. Liam's workshop was responsible for 60 different metal pieces, the Thompson family was producing 15 unique furniture designs, Maya's team was creating custom-dyed fabrics, and Tom was sourcing rare gemstones. I had everything planned out in my head. The timeline, the quantities, the contingency plans for any potential problems. But no one asked me about it, they just assumed everything would go smoothly because it always had. 2 weeks after the meeting, Mr. Hill called me into his office. He was shuffling through papers and not looking at me as he spoke. June, we're restructuring your role. We've hired someone with experience in international supply chain management to take over your position. You'll be doing more administrative work to support the new person. I was stunned. Administrative work? What about the Timeless collection? I've been coordinating all the suppliers, I said. He looked up briefly. The new person will take over. You'll brief them. I was speechless. But there's nothing written down. I've managed all these relationships personally, and the information isn't in the company's systems. He stared at me. Why not? I explained, that's how Grace taught me. You never asked for anything different. You just said, handle it. He waved his hand dismissively. You'll explain everything to the new person. It's simple. It wasn't simple at all, but I nodded and left. The new guy, Max, started the following week. He was in his early 30s and had worked for several large corporations. He talked about optimizing systems and increasing efficiency all the time. When he asked me for the supplier database, I told him there wasn't one. He burst out laughing. There has to be, he said. I insisted, there isn't. For 2 weeks, I tried to explain how everything worked. I told him about the personal relationships, the cultural sensitivities, and the importance of trust. But he didn't want to listen. He wanted lists, numbers, and strict procedures. He didn't understand that you couldn't just call Liam and demand a faster delivery, you had to ask about his family first. After 2 weeks, Max told Mr. Hill that I wasn't being cooperative. And that's how I ended up at this retreat. We were in the mountains, away from the city, supposed to be celebrating the upcoming launch of the Timeless collection. Ava was up on stage, presenting her ideas for the launch party. As she was talking, she waved her hands too vigorously, and the water bottles on the table went flying. They rolled across the floor towards me. She stopped mid-sentence, looked down at the mess, and then at me. Could you get those? It wasn't a question, it was a command. I bent down to pick up the bottles while 43 pairs of eyes watched. Ava laughed and stepped over me as I crawled around. Sorry, everyone. Where was I? Oh, right, the gift bags for the event. Someone snickered, and I felt my face grow hot. I kept my head down, reaching for a bottle that had rolled under a chair. My knees were pressed hard against the wooden floor, and I could feel the scrutiny of everyone in the room. Suddenly, Ava's voice rang out, you know what this reminds me of? My poodle, Daisy. I taught her to fetch in just 3 days, and she brings things back perfectly. You've been here for over a decade, and you're still doing menial tasks? The room erupted in laughter. I looked up, and there she was, smiling down at me, her arms crossed, looking so proud of herself. My dog is smarter than you, she said, and the laughter grew louder. I turned to look at Mr. Hill, who was sitting in the front row. He was laughing so hard that his face was red. He didn't say a word to stop her. I grabbed the last bottle, stood up, and walked to the back of the room. I placed the bottles on the counter and then walked out. No one followed me. I stood outside in the cold for 20 minutes, letting the fresh air clear my head. Then I got in my car and drove the 3 hours home, alone with my thoughts. On Monday morning, I went to the office at 8 o'clock sharp. I walked straight into Mr. Hill's office and handed him a piece of paper. This is my resignation, effective immediately, I said. He looked shocked. What? Why? I replied, it's not about what Ava said. I'm done. I've had enough of being undervalued. He tried to convince me, saying, the Timeless collection launches in 6 weeks, and Max is still learning. I shook my head. That's not my problem anymore. I turned and walked out, packed up my small office into 2 boxes, and drove away. I went home and slept for 12 hours straight. When I woke up, my daughter, who was now 16, was sitting on my bed. Mom, why are you home? It's Tuesday, she said. I sat up and rubbed my eyes. I quit my job, honey. She was surprised. The place you've been at for so long? Why? Because they didn't respect me. I stayed there too long, I said. She just hugged me without asking more questions. That whole week, I stayed at home. I cleaned the house from top to bottom, organized closets that I had ignored for years, and cooked proper meals. It felt strange not having to worry about shipments and supplier schedules. My phone rang constantly, but I didn't answer. There were 12 calls from Mr. Hill, 8 from Max, and a few from other colleagues. The messages started out polite, asking me to call back to discuss my transition. Then they got more urgent, saying they needed my help with the supplier contacts. Finally, they became desperate, offering me a huge consulting fee to save the Timeless collection. I deleted them all. On Friday afternoon, there was a knock on my door. I looked through the window and saw Max. He looked a mess, his shirt wrinkled and his hair disheveled. I almost didn't open the door, but curiosity got the better of me. What do you want? I asked through the door. Please, June. Just talk to me for 5 minutes, he pleaded. I opened the door but didn't invite him in. He said, everything is falling apart. I can't find any of the suppliers. The files don't exist, and when I call the numbers I found, they don't know who I am. They keep asking for you. He then said, please, just give me the contact list. That's all I need. I replied, there is no contact list. I managed everything in my head, and it worked for 11 years. He got angry. That's insane. That's not how professionals work. I shrugged. Maybe not, but it worked for me. And I'm not interested in helping. Have a good day, Max. I closed the door, and he left after a few more minutes. The following week, I started getting calls from the suppliers themselves. Liam was the first to call. June, what's going on? Some guy called me, being really rude. He just demanded information about the metal pieces without even asking how I was. I told him, I don't work there anymore, Liam. There was a long silence on the other end. Then you left Meadowbrook? He asked. Yes. They hired someone new, but Liam, maybe it's time for you to find other clients. Meadowbrook doesn't treat people well. He sighed. They never treated me well. I stayed because you treated me with respect. We talked for a while about his family and his business. One by one, the other suppliers called over the next few days. Maya, the Thompson family, and Tom all had the same questions. I told them the same thing. I had left, and they should do what was best for their own businesses. By the 3rd week, none of the suppliers were answering Meadowbrook's calls. One Wednesday morning at 6 o'clock, my phone rang. It was Mr. Hill. His voice was strained. June, we need to talk. I said, I don't think we do. He pleaded, please, come in. Let's discuss this like adults. I replied, there's nothing to discuss. I resigned, and you accepted it. He then said, I'm asking you to reconsider. We'll double your salary, give you any title you want, and make Max report to you. I thought about all the years of being underappreciated, of Ava's cruel words and his laughter. I want to spend time with my daughter. I want to work somewhere where I'm valued, not used, I said. He said, we value you. We made a mistake. I was angry. You made a lot of mistakes over the years, Mr. Hill. I'm done fixing them. He then said, the Timeless collection will fail without you. We'll lose everything. I retorted, that's your problem, not mine. He got angry and said, you're destroying the company out of spite because of one comment from Ava. That's petty. I was furious. One comment? You restructured my whole role after 11 years of me keeping this company running. You never cared how I did my job. And then your daughter humiliated me, and you just sat there laughing. This is about 11 years of being ignored. I hung up the phone, my hands shaking, but I felt a sense of relief. A few days later, Maya called me again. June, I got a call from a lawyer representing Meadowbrook. They say I'm contractually obligated to fulfill orders, but I never signed a contract with them. I only worked with you on trust. I told her, there are no contracts. Mr. Hill kept everything informal to save money. He can't force you to do anything. She laughed. Good. That Max guy was so unpleasant. I have plenty of other work now anyway. Over the next few days, I heard similar stories from the other suppliers. Meadowbrook was trying to use legal pressure, but there was no solid evidence or contracts to enforce. 4 weeks after I quit, an article appeared in a trade magazine. Luxury brand Meadowbrook Home Creations cancels major launch. The article talked about production issues, supplier problems, and disappointed customers demanding refunds for their advance orders of millions of dollars. The estimated losses for the company were huge. I read the article twice, but I felt nothing. No satisfaction, no guilt. My daughter came home from school and saw me looking at job listings on my laptop. Already? She asked. I said, money doesn't last forever, honey. I need to work. She sat down next to me. Are you going to find another place like Meadowbrook? I shook my head. No. I'm going to find a place that values me and my work. She smiled. Good. You deserve that. 2 days later, I got a call from an unknown number. It was a woman named Chloe. She ran a company called Emerald Trading, which connected small-scale artisans with high-end retailers. She said she had heard about me from Liam. He had spoken very highly of my work and the relationships I had built. She asked me if I'd be interested in a position where I could manage supplier relationships. We're expanding, and we need someone who understands the human side of business, not just the numbers, she said. I thought about Grace's advice all those years ago, about keeping things personal and making myself irreplaceable. But maybe there was a better way. Yes, I'd be interested, I said. We met the following week. Chloe's company was smaller than Meadowbrook but growing rapidly. She introduced me to her team of 6 people, all in their late 30s like me, and they were passionate about their work. She explained that they were committed to fair trade, proper contracts, and long-term relationships with their suppliers. She offered me a position as a supplier relations manager. The salary was a bit less than what I made at Meadowbrook, but the work environment seemed promising. I accepted the offer. Before I started the new job, I took my daughter out for dinner. We talked about everything and nothing, and then she suddenly said, "I'm proud of you, Mom." I asked, "For what?" "For leaving. For not letting them treat you badly anymore. A lot of people would have stayed." I realized she was right. I had stayed at Meadowbrook for too long, but I was finally free. On my first day at Emerald Trading, everything felt right. Chloe introduced me to the suppliers they already worked with. I reached out to Liam, Maya, the Thompson family, and Tom. They were all excited to work with me again, this time through a company that treated them fairly. Within 2 months, Emerald Trading had signed contracts with all 17 suppliers I had worked with at Meadowbrook. The contracts were fair and provided security for both sides. I heard through Liam that Meadowbrook was in big trouble. The failure of the Timeless collection had damaged their reputation. Big retailers were canceling orders, and Mr. Hill had to lay off several employees. They're trying to sell the company, but no one wants to buy it after all that happened, Liam told me. I didn't ask for more details, I didn't need to. 6 months into working at Emerald Trading, Chloe came over to my desk with her phone. You need to see this, she said, showing me an article. The headline read, Meadowbrook Home Creations sold in distress sale. The buyer was a large, mass-producing furniture company. The sale price was barely enough to cover Meadowbrook's debts. I said, that's the Hills Company. Chloe nodded. I know. Liam told me what happened. It must feel strange seeing it end like this. I thought about it. I mostly feel sad for the employees who lost their jobs because of the Hills' bad decisions. Chloe said, we're hiring. If any of them reach out.